What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the penultimate episode of Loki titled Journey into Mystery, which itself is a callback to a bunch of incredible Thor comics. So you got to love when they have respect for what came before. Anyways, this episode starts off with some pretty cool effects at the beginning. Gave me some Zack Snyder vibes. It was, canted angles, slow motion, and the chorus in the background. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was awesome, and I also agree with that Zack Snyder point. It really looked like something Zack Snyder would have come up with. And I like it especially because it helps the viewer understand the weirdness of the circumstances, and it really sells it with zooming in. It like reminds you exactly where we left off by zooming in to the male-assed head. Gotta love male-assed, by the way.
You got to love him.
This episode doesn't waste any time. Literally, the quickest response ever is just like Loki's like, "Where are we?" I thought they were gonna like explain everything, but they don't. They're like, "Okay, this is Goliath. He's a big angry cloud. We're his lunch if we stay around here. Let's get out of here."
Yeah, and by the way, Alioth is a reference to this like cloud-like creature in the comics. So it's great that they have a balance between making original villains and also referencing stuff that came before, as I said.
I think this episode was like the highest, like the most lore we've ever seen, like the most like comic callbacks we've ever seen in a Marvel TV show so far.
Definitely, yeah. And we'll get to some of those comic callbacks in a bit. But yeah, what'd you think about Sylvie's interrogation attempt and her dynamic with Ravonna?
It was interesting to me because she didn't ask the questions that I thought she was gonna ask in total. Like, I guess it's trying to show that how much she cares about Loki more than she cares about herself at this point.
Yeah,
Because she didn't like press more on what was her Nexus event.
that's true. You would have thought that she'd be more interested, but I think maybe she believes that Ravonna genuinely forgets what it was.
Yeah, and well, one thing we learned is don't trust Ravonna in this episode because every chance she gets, she double crosses everybody. She and Miss Minutes plays a little game where they're like looking for a file, quotations, quotations, like looking for a file, but nothing is actually there. They're just waiting for the TVA troops to storm in. Sylvie panics, realizes that she's outnumbered and all, and she just self prunes after realizing that the void is after time. Like she kind of calls out how stupid everyone in the TVA is for believing this timekeeper BS and all the stuff that they've taught them in the past. But she finally decides to just take the leap, and she self prunes
Wait,
herself.
so let's talk about how much Ravonna actually knows because I was surprised that when Sylvie pruned herself to go find Loki, Ravonna was like, "Oh, she's dead."
Well, I think she said that because nothing returns from the pruning process.
Oh, I see.
Because Eliath, I don't think she knows about Eliath though. I'll be real. I don't think she knows about Eliath. I don't think she knows anything about the void. I think she just knows that, like, I think she only knows what she said, which was that matter can't, like, we can't just destroy that much matter at once. So we transport it over to the void, and then the void Eliath eats that shit up like later on.
In the comics, she's actually like affiliated with Eliath, and I think she like takes over for Eliath.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much they're gonna go into that because I I thought this entire time that Ravonna was like in the comics, like she was Kang's lover, and she would know everything about what was going on with that. Like she would know everything about Kang, but she seems genuinely surprised in this episode, and I feel like she was chosen by whoever created the TVA. Maybe that's Kang. I'm not gonna say for sure right now because they're only hinting to it, but if it's Kang, I think she was chosen primarily because Kang knew, or whoever created the TVA knew, that she would follow blindly. She wouldn't care about who was in charge. She just realized that there's someone in charge and she'd protect them at all costs.
Yeah, but to be fair, the actress of Ravonna, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, has gone on record not confirming nor denying her romance with Kang.
Maybe it's like a thing that happens later.
I would love to see that in the final episode, but there's only so much they can do.
Yeah, maybe she's just putting on a show for everyone else. Like, it did seem like she genuinely didn't know what was going on, though.
That is true. Now, speaking of an affiliate of Ravonna, our boy Mobius is back, and I think his return was second only to the return of his mustache, which actually wasn't edited out.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad he came back with the mustache. Because when we saw that edited photo, it looked like it was gone, and I was really worried that they were gonna, they're gonna anti-Superman it.
100%. Yeah, you can't do a Henry Cavill on my boy.
Yeah, but let's talk about some other guys. Before we talk about Mobius, Richard E. Grant, despite that horribly bad costume that looked like something that a cosplayer would have made at home and pulled up to Comic Con with, like. he did a really good job.
Yeah, he was crazy in this episode.
He did a great job. He was funny. He probably was the most important of the Loki variants. Had the longest like screen had the longest amount of screen time. Kid Loki, Boastful Loki, and Alligator Loki were like all comic relief. And it was refreshing after the last episode being so tense, but there were a couple scenes that really cracked me up, like when they're all like going cheers and then Kid Loki shows up with the high C.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, but I gotta say, they weren't all comic relief because Kid Loki did mention that he killed Thor. So I don't know how funny that
I
is.
think that's pretty funny. Nah, that then the TVA nabbed him after he killed Thor as a kid. Yeah, that's kind of a callback to the comics because he did attempt to do that in like one of these comics way back when that I read. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so speaking of comic callbacks, there actually were a lot of a lot of references in this episode because everything that gets pruned basically like shows up here. Now, I know you wanted to talk about the Thanos copter, right?
Yeah, dude, that blew I started cracking up. You remember? I started cracking up. Like, I saw the helicopter and I just saw Thanos and I was like, "What? Oh no, this is something from like the old comics that nobody remembers." But I remember they had like Thanos in a helicopter, and everyone was like, there were like YouTube theory videos on how they would fit the Thanos copter into Avengers 4, and I'm so glad that the MCU is watching. Like, the people behind the MCU where they're watching this stuff and they're like, we got to fit it in somewhere. And that's why Thanos never had the helicopter because it got pruned.
It better show up in Marvel What If. It
I hope so.
better.
Well, if they have a Thanos thing in What If.
They do. Josh Brolin is returning. So,
Oh, okay. Maybe they have the Thanos copter, bro. I'm all down for it.
yeah, so other references include Throg or Thor as a frog, Ronan's ship, and the Avengers Tower, which we talk about in the leaks.
And even the title, as you mentioned, was Journey into Mystery, which is what the Thor comics were called back in the day. I'm thinking
Exactly.
they
Yeah,
still
they
might be called that. I haven't read a comic in a minute, but yeah,
they have a lot of love for this comic lore.
yeah. We also got some backstories of the rest of the Loki variants, like Boastful Loki, for example. He's holding a hammer, which is, I guess, his version of Mjolnir. But sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I just can't pronounce that ever. But he has his own version of that. And I like how they're really hammering the point home that Lokis will betray each other, because it turns out Boastful Loki betrayed the his little clan of Lokis by telling President Loki, who was a big part of our theories way back when, and we got this one right, by the way. We said that President Loki is not our Loki, and it turns out that was completely right. He came in and they started a huge Loki battle, which was very very fun. And I thought President Loki was so much of a meme.
Yeah, he gave me some Phineas and Ferb across the second dimension vibes, because both of those films or shows in a way involve an anti-hero going up against an alternate version of himself in charge of a dystopian reality. That was
Hmm.
an awesome movie, by the way. So
That was a great movie, and I totally see where you're going with that. It's just like Lokis will betray each other, and the reason our Loki and Sylvie are different and they're better is because they won't betray each other.
yeah, I mean, loyalty is certainly a rarity when it comes to Loki's.
Yeah. Sylvie and Loki finally meet up after a while. They and Mobius and Loki also meet up. We get to see the friendship between them, which kind of messed up during the last episode because like a huge chunk of that episode was like Mobius just did not believe Loki, and as soon as he starts to believe Loki, they prune him. So they really gave that friendship as much as it deserved, and I like how Sylvie and Loki kind of admit to liking each other in the most Loki way they can.
I need to see my boy Mobius with a jet ski in the sixth episode. That's just a
Oh,
must-have.
guaranteed, guaranteed. They have to do it somehow. But Mobius leaves right before Sylvie and our Loki decide to try to fight Goliath in a way, like they try to enchant
Alioth, not Goliath.
Goliath, not Goliath, Jesus, Goliath, Goliath. Yeah. Uh, Mobius leaves, and in his own words, he's gonna burn the TVA to the ground, which is a really cool line from him. I think it's his best line so far.
Yeah, I think it's kind of giving me some Lalo vibes from Better Call Saul because Lalo, he's just he's still a criminal, but he's pretty happy-go-lucky about stuff. But when you piss him off, then he's mad.
Yeah, I like how he said it with a little smile. That was funny. We got a crazy CGI battle, and even a moment where classic Loki actually returns, defying his whole Loki-ness of betrayal and all that, he just comes in and he helps Sylvie and Loki fight Eliath.
Yeah, I think he did a great job of like portraying Tom Hiddleston in a way with that laugh, right?
Mhm.
But I gotta say, Mysterio, he has nothing on classic Loki. My boy Classic really carried the team with that CGI Asgard.
Completely distracted Eliath, and I thought that for a moment there, I thought that they would not kill him, but they ended up killing him off, and just
R.I.P.
right before Eliath turns its attention onto Sylvie and Loki, they enchant Eliath fully. Eliath like dissipates. I don't even know what happened to him. It just turned green, and I guess they just see like a portal open up, a kind of like bubble world open up.
Yeah, I want to know like what happens if you die in the void? Like, do you go to another void or something, or are you just like dead, dead?
Yeah, I was wondering that, especially when the USS Eldridge, I believe, came in,
Yeah,
which again, another theory that we got right, guys. I'm telling you, we are eagle-eyed about this. Yeah, but Eldridge, the USS Eldridge came in and they destroyed it. I guess that's another nice history retcon of sorts.
yeah, for sure. It's now we actually know why the ship disappeared, right?
Yeah, it was pruned by the TVA, guys. Makes complete sense.
I feel kind of bad for those sailors, right? Your ship disappears and you end up in like this weird void, and then this giant cloud monster just comes to eat you up.
Yeah, it was definitely a little scary to watch, but yeah, what happens to them though? Do they just like die, like completely, like are they just destroyed?
I would assume so, but maybe this bubble world that shows up is where you go when you get killed in this void.
Well, then that population must be super high. I don't think anyone. I think this bubble world, actually, I would disagree. I think this bubble world is the library place that we keep talking about in the league videos.
No, 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 it definitely is a library place, but at the same time, I think you mentioned there might be a scuffle with the librarian. Because why else would you like start doing stunts with swords?
No, I agree, but I doubt any of them actually go into that bubble world. I think that bubble world can only be accessed after you kill Eliath.
No, no, but I'm thinking like maybe the bubble world like represents Eliath in a way, like everything that Eliath has eaten. Because when Eliath faded away, the bubble world was left, right?
Hmm.
So maybe this castle is where everyone resides.
You think every time someone dies in there, they turn into a book that gets added to the library?
Maybe, or they have like their own room. Because let me just tell you, right? It's not like one person can live in a castle, right?
True, true, true. We'll find out all about that stuff. This is like I'm feeling like we're doing the crazy theory segment from our league video.
Definitely.
We'll save this all for the next one, guys. Before we end, you got to give a shout out to somebody.
Yeah, so shout out to Natalie Holt who made the soundtrack for this episode and the entire series. I think her operatic score really fit the scope of this episode, and it really helped make it feel like a Marvel movie instead of a Marvel TV show.
Definitely, and I think I appreciate this score more than the rest of them. Although I did like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier score slightly better. Especially because they called back to like the Captain America Winter Soldier ones, and they made a little distorted Captain America one. Do you remember that for
Yeah, it was the
U.S.
same
Agent?
composer as Civil War and Winter Soldier. So talk
I
about
like
musical
that one
cohesion.
better as a whole, but I think this fits the show a lot better.
In a way, yeah, I have to agree because they did a really interesting thing, like mixing epic music with this kind of like Nordic traditional vibe.
Yeah. That's pretty much all we have for that. But I do love this score. So it's a great shout out, Natalie Ann Holt, I believe her full name is. So shout
Yeah.
out to her.
So yeah, if you guys want to see what happens in episode 6, the last episode of this show, make sure you check out our weekly leak video coming out this weekend. Go ahead and leave your crazy theories in the comments and let us know what you thought. Until next time, see you guys.